Thank you very much for joining us today for this interesting episode. Stephen from the IDP Foundation. It's a real privilege this morning to have the Ghana Country Director for the IDP Foundation join us for this episode. You're welcome to the podcast, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Senyo. It's a pleasure to be here and to contribute to the great work that you're doing within the education space in terms of this podcast series. I've also equally been following the interesting conversations, and it's a pleasure to be able to add on to that.
Yeah, thanks. We're happy to have you on the show. So we jump right into the conversation. I think our audience are very curious and would want to learn about who this person is that we have brought to the episodes today. So Stephen, if you do not mind, can you share a brief about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Senyo. My name is Stephen Opuni, and as you mentioned, I'm Country Director for IDP Foundation. In the Ghana office, I lead half of the IDP's team that sits in Ghana, a team of 5 altogether. In terms of the focus of my work, I lead the team in influencing strategy and building effective partnerships for the non-state education sector, both at the national level and also contributed to the global work of the foundation. In terms of training, I'm an economist by training. I have about 15 years of experience working within the development sector in Ghana, as well as some regional and global efforts. I've been doing this in the education space, in the area of women's rights and gender, health and economic rights. Prior to joining IDP Foundation, I was acting head of programs and policy for ActionAid Ghana. And I would say that I am coming into this role and have been in this role, probably based on my strength in understanding the complexities of the education provision, both in the public sector as well as the non-state sector. Yeah. And my strength is probably developing strategies and building alliances to advance sustainable solutions that are beyond aid in the education space. So this is a brief on my background, and I think we can jump into further.
Let's get into learning about the organization now. Can you tell us about the origins of the IDP Foundation? I'm personally curious about what the IDP that stands for.
Yeah, sure. So IDP stands for Innovation, Development and Progress. We are a family foundation co-founded by a mother and a daughter team. We are committed to deploying effective philanthropy, which is catalytic and support market-based solutions that creates, sustainable solutions beyond aid. We believe that market solutions will thrive further, and we don't want to contribute to an aid-dependent system. And so all our philanthropic work is trying to further a very sustainable market-based solutions. As a funder, we are a champion of the affordable non-state education sector. We think this sector is a key contributor to improving quality education, especially in marginalised and underserved communities. Oftentimes, this non-state education sector is often not recognized, even though it's a critical element or segment of the entire mixed provision of education in Ghana, as well as in a lot of the global south. As a foundation, we are spread between about 3 countries. Our headquarters is in the US, Chicago, and we have a team also sitting in the UK, and also a team sitting in Ghana overseeing the work in Ghana as well as in Kenya. So this is sort of a brief on IDP Foundation.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, what I'm learning from that is currently you focus on the non-state education sector, what many people would call private schools. And I was going to ask why the focus on private schools, but I think you have touched on this briefly. And so I would want to understand in the Ghanaian context where you are the director, what is the scope of projects as of today? What's in your portfolio?
Yeah, I would say that in terms of our work generally, our work is sits within two main buckets. And the first bucket is our schools work. And our schools work sort of advances our efforts, our support in education right now. So maybe stepping back a little, we would say that quality education is quite key in eradicating intergenerational poverty. Senyo, I'm sure myself and you and all others would never debate the point that education is the common ground that kind of gives everybody an access to, jump over poverty, that hurdle over poverty, and make a living and improve well-being. And so that is not debatable at all. We currently have the SDG 4 goal, which we are all racing towards to meeting. And for us, if Ghana, for example, has any chance of meeting the SDG 4 goal, we need to ensure that all children in all settings, including the non-state, are involved in everything that we are doing in terms of providing education, quality education. And so a good chunk of our efforts is focused on ensuring that the non-state education sector, especially the affordable non-state and low-fee private schools, are included in this effort as improving access to quality education. And maybe for Ghana's context, if you look at our population post-independence, for example, since 1960, and comparing it to now, we've kind of about fivefold, increased our population. Yeah. And we also realized that public education provision is not keeping up with the population growth and the demand. And so organically, low-fee private schools have risen up and been set up by social entrepreneurs who see the need in their communities and have created these schools that are complementing public education provision or education provision generally in Ghana, and are doing this in marginalised communities and underserved communities. So this is the kind of sector that we work in and are trying to support to ensure that education is reaching everywhere and all children or all learners are accessing education the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, and maybe as a foundation, how are we doing this? So we are doing this by providing grants, providing program and mission-related investments, investing in research, providing support and technical support, and also our own leadership and the team that drives this. And so this is sort of the background to our work. In our schools space or our schools work, we look at access, which is basically improving access to education for all children now. And what we are doing in that particular space is identifying and partnering with financial institutions and training organizations who can serve the low-fee private school sector to improve on their infrastructure and make available more spaces to pick up the increasing number of children that need education. And hopefully what we want to achieve with this is that the number of out-of-school children, especially between primary and junior high, would then be reduced. We will be able to use this to contribute to that reduction. Under the schools bucket of work, we are also looking at quality. And basically, it's how are we going to improve learning outcomes in these schools? And in that particular space, what we seek to do is just position low-fee private schools as hubs of innovation.
Yeah.
And what we are doing is trying to fund innovative learning interventions in low-fee private schools, measure them in terms of the outcomes they produce, and share the evidences around it, as well as also scale some of these interventions that would improve learning. And hopefully what we want to achieve with that is contributing to the number of children that continue in education and the number of learners who can also transition into secondary education from junior high school. So it's about school retention and learning happening, as well as transitioning from junior high to secondary school and further beyond that. And so this kind of summary sits within our school's work. The other bit of our work, which is the systems work, is basically funding advocacy and championing the affordable non-state sector. And basically what we are advocating for is championing this mixed economy of education provision and ensuring that this affordable non-state sector has a voice, is recognized, is included in education policy, and able to influence the education discourse. And hopefully what we want to achieve there is that this affordable non-state sector is not seen as a neglected sector. It is seen and recognized and supported and integrated into the centralized governed mixed provision of education that is supposed to be what is ideal for reaching every child and helping the country meet its education outcomes and goals, especially around the SDGs. So in short, this is sort of the two main buckets and the framing of our work in Ghana. And I'm sure that as we get into the conversation, we can get into the specifics.
Yeah, thanks very much for that helpful overview. And from what you've said, I see you're working on increasing access to education, but also providing interventions that would help better the quality of learning outcomes. But beyond that, you also working in advocacy or hoping to strengthen systems of provision. And an issue that comes to mind, and you're talking about your support for the non-state education sector, policymakers and researchers, as well as practitioners who do not feel that private provision of education it's necessary, especially at the basic school level. And this is because they feel that education is a public good, and so it should be available to all persons. Now, as much as I understand the need and the state in marginalized communities and throwing light on social entrepreneurs who are being innovative and trying to address some of these issues, there are notions that external assistance or external assistance to private schools sort of take out the burden from government, who have the responsibility to make education free for everyone. And so do you think that the work of organizations like yours, who provide support to the non-state sector, kind of allow governments to relent on their responsibility to all children by doing their work for them?
Yeah, thank you, Senyo. And I think this is a very important point you're making. And in response to that, I'll say that IDP Foundation takes a position that public education is an essential part of the education system. We are for more support for an investment in public education. And I think that the importance that we place on every child meeting, being able to access education actually fuels the reason why we work in this sector. I think the data is quite evident on the fact that public education is not reaching everywhere, despite, even meeting the global benchmarks in terms of investments. Mm-hmm. So I think I would say that, our efforts in supporting the affordable non-state sector is basically also based on the evidence that we see in the field and out there. And basically it's the fact that if you look at access to education at the national level, public schools are not reaching everyone. And so what are the complementers of our national education provision? A large majority of them are within the affordable non-state sector. So these are is a sector that organically grows, sees the need that is present because public education budgets are overstretched. And so evidently there are kids that are or learners or children that need to be reached with education now. And so it is an organic instance response to a need that we can never overlook. And this is already present. And for us, we want to focus on how this sector is complementing the public education provision. And that is where we are coming from. We hold a position that support going to the affordable non-state sector complements education provision nationally. And I don't think it takes away from public, investment. The other bit around this is that I don't think that we share the responsibility from government. I think the response from the affordable non-state sector towards towards education in Ghana complements it. It reinforces it. In fact, we hold a position that education can never be left, education provision can never be left to government alone. I think that this is a sector that we need to approach with an all hands on deck mentality. We need to rally more support. And I think that if entrepreneurs are setting up schools in communities where public education is not reaching, they need to be commended and supported because they are playing a complementary role in support of government's goals. And I think that is the main kind of position that we hold and we support. And if you look at even the numbers, right, over the years, if you look at education budgets, the amount of money that is spent on the various aspects, large portions of education budgets are going into teacher salaries and monuments. And so the bit that is reserved to really go into investments in increasing reach, it's really not there. And so that is one aspect. And we feel that, we need to increase investment into education, but it's very obvious that government cannot do all. And so if entrepreneurs are doing this in areas where government is not reaching, their efforts need to be complemented. And that's where we come in, where we try to work with financial institutions to influence them to reach out in terms of financing to these schools, and also work with learning intervention providers to help them address the learning quality issues within these schools. The whole work in terms of our systems work is focused on still engaging the duty bearer, the Ministry of Education, and all the other agencies that work within the space, because the non-state education sector can never exist independent of the duty bearer, that is government. And so we have over the years supported and partnered with the Ministry of Education and these agencies. And as we get into the more details, I can share specific things that we're doing just to ensure that government still has an oversight role and is able to work with these schools in a way that that one system of education delivery system is present and is able to regulate it and ensure that standards are set. And it's all an all hands on deck approach to ensuring that every child is receiving quality basic education in Ghana.
Thanks for your reflections. And your response on that. I think your point is well noted, and you have clarified that education provision is not reaching everyone, and that your role is to complement effort rather than take the burden completely from government. And there are people who are in our communities. Lots of communities have stayed and worked in that would be keen to move their wards or their peoples into private schools once that spans up. This weekend, I was in a community in Ghana to visit family, and 5 years ago, I have been there and seen the state. 5 years on, just going around the neighborhood, I counted 3 new private schools, but there are 2 public schools in the system. And I think that there are work that seem to suggest that quality of public schools is perceived to be low. That is poor teaching, learning resources, and learning outcomes, discouraging the demand for public basic education. And so as long as people can afford, including teachers in public schools themselves, very little people continue to have increased trust in public education system. And I am aware that the IDP Foundation in 2019 did commission some research work into finding the disparities between private schools and public schools. And the perception generally in the Ghanaian context, at least, is that private schools do perform better, better managed and supervised, and their results are better than public schools, for which reason lots of parents would want to drive their children there. I wonder if from the organization's perspective, there are any observations or recommendations through the research and your experience that you are able to tell us in terms of how we can address the perceived low quality of public schools.
Yeah, thank you, Senyo. I think there's a very important point that you're bringing into the conversation. And probably I'll start off again saying that maybe there is a limited reach of public education. A lot of the times there's limited classroom spaces. So you would go to some public schools and you would find out that the numbers are quite enormous and out of the reach and control of management for teachers. There is a perceived, and I need to mention that there is a perceived low quality provision in public schools that has also fueled that kind of appetite for private schools. But I should say that when we talk of the quality, it's also important to note that learners generally in Ghana, learning outcomes are not the best. Even in low-fee private schools, this study that we did in the central region, comparing low-fee private schools to public schools in the same settings, we find out that low learning outcomes generally in these schools, both in the public and in the private, are generally low. Low-fee private schools may be performing marginally better, but I don't think it is a substantial improvement. And I think that what is recognized is the shared issue and problem that learning outcomes are poor in all the settings. And so I think there are factors that are driving interest in public schools. I think that majority of it is because public education systems are overstretched, and so private schools and low-fee private schools serve as alternative options for families and households. I think that low-fee private schools need support. They need to improve on their learning outcomes. And generally, you're very much aware as a stakeholder within the education space that learning in Ghana is not the best. And so we have a lot of kids in school, but learning is really something that we can do better. And it's not any different from low-fee private schools. And that is a shared problem of the sector. And so as we think through how can we improve learning outcomes in Ghana, we need to not see the private school sector as doing well, especially the low-fee private school sector needs government support. So when we think of teachers, we think of, TLMs and any intervention that should improve learning outcomes. We need to think of the low-fee private school sector and the affordable non-state sector, because a lot of the time they are not supported and it's perceived that they are doing fine. But our research shows very well that even though they are managed well, there is some accountability systems that supports, their preferred kind of status. The core of it in terms of, improving learning outcomes, we could be supportive of that. That is, for me, one of the spaces where government realizes the complementary role they are playing and then supports them by advancing some of these interventions and programs to these schools. And we think that is one of the key things that government needs to do and step up and show up and support for. And it remains one of the key things that I advocate for in all my meetings within the ministry. So, Senyo, I think that low-fee private schools in the affordable non-state sector has a really great role to play. I don't think it should, the spotlight should be on it being seen as, the preferred to public. I think the complementary role and where it needs to even be supported to improve the existing work that they're doing should be the focus of the conversation.
Thanks very much for sharing that. And in relation to what you said, the National Schools Inspectorate Authority in Ghana seeks to hopefully bridge that gap to some extent. And what I have learned about their work is they try to get the license fees or registration fees from well-to-do private schools or high-end private schools, and through that they may be able to support the low-fee private schools as well as public education systems that do not meet certain standards of infrastructure, tools, and resources. And I think that as part of your advocacy work, this is some support that you can be providing, and seeing that NaSIA is able to be, as a regulator, also bridge that gap. Because if you have expectations, for example, of sanitation provisions in all private schools, but there are schools in marginalized communities that are struggling with classrooms, let alone putting up a bathroom and toilet, it means that there may be additional support to help, which is in line with what you have been saying. Now let's stay with IDP Foundation and what you do for the rest of the conversation. I want to know specifically what criteria you look at when you are determining which school or which private school to support, because there should be a huge number of them. So what informs your choice of projects or schools to support?
Thank you, Senyo, for this aspect. So delving into how we define a low-fee private school, maybe stepping back a bit and also saying that within the space as well, you would also hear low-cost private schools. I think both terms or names are synonymous to each other. They mean the same. And for us, an operational definition of what a low-fee private school is any school with an average annual fee threshold of the equivalent in Ghana cedis of $200. And so this is sort of the fee level definition. But, in terms of, how that looks like, most of these schools are located in the rural, peri-urban, urban slums, low income, underserved communities. So these are the kind of locations that you would see these schools. A good number of them are in wooden structures or any structures other than concrete blocks or bricks. They could also be in, block or brick. But just to say that infrastructure-wise, they may not have the complement of, a high-end school in terms of infrastructure. They are likely to have, not the best of sanitation or poor sanitation facilities. They may not have inadequate facilities in terms of laboratories and kitchen offices and storages. And a very important point also to make is that a lot of majority of their teaching force remain untrained. Okay. And this is one of the important things that we are advocating actually for. And we are happy that currently the National Teachers Council has provided an opportunity to get a lot of these untrained teachers to get their own licenses. So this is sort of a description of of course, the fee level, as well as the descriptors of what a low-fee private school could look like. And this sort of guides how we work with such schools together with our partners.
Thanks. That is clear enough. And that sounds like very thoughtful. And staying on that still, what do you think has been some of the major progress or successes that you have seen so far in the work that IDP Foundation is leading in Ghana?
Yeah, maybe just to talk on some of the results of our work or the outcomes of our work today. Maybe so to date, as I broadly said, we've been working in Ghana for the past 14 years. We recently started work in Kenya. And so in totality, we are reaching about 1,511 schools. And so these are schools that we are working with. We've been able to reach about 1,700, little over 1,700 of school leaders with training. And these schools are also serving a little over 250,000 learners. So broadly between Ghana and Kenya, this is sort of the numbers of the schools, school leaders and children that we are impacting. In terms of our education financing, over the period we've been able to disperse about 1,333 loans, this and from a loan client of about 772. So in terms of getting financing through our financial institution partners to schools, this is sort of the impact that we've made so far. Maybe since we are doing this in Ghana, I'll just narrow down on Ghana. And in Ghana, our financial institution partner is SNAPIA SNAPIA Savings and Loans. And we've been working with them for the past 14 years. In fact, we curated and built up this program with them, the Rising Schools program with them. And for Ghana alone, we are reaching about 962 schools, disbursed a little over 800 loans, reaching about a little over 200,000 children. The good thing with the education finance portfolio that we have is the repayment rate. We have a repayment rate of around 93% from the schools. And so you find out that the program itself is financially stable, reliable, and quite sustainable. So this would be sort of the education access bidding in terms of financing. When we come to the quality area, we recently, as of our work in Kenya, had a partnership, set up a partnership with Dignitas, who is now leading our quality work in Kenya. Of course, they are focusing on school leadership and instructional leadership, and as well as a little bit of financial literacy with proprietors in informal schools or low-fee private schools in Kenya. And to date, we've been able to reach about close to 200 schools, 198 schools, trained about 743 school leaders on this school leadership, instructional leadership, and for the school owners themselves, financial literacy. And we are reaching within this particular area about a little about 32,000 children who are benefiting from these schools. And we are hoping that these trainings would improve learning in schools, the management of schools, and the financial sustainability of these schools. In terms of quality itself, IDP Foundation has been, teacher quality or teacher teaching in classrooms is one of the most important things that we look at. When we look at the low-fee private school sector, as already mentioned, majority of the teachers are not trained. And so rote learning is sort of the way to go. But then rote learning also we find in public schools where, trained teachers also handle. And it's a common problem across the education or classroom spaces in Ghana. IDP Foundation, in helping to address this through a partnership with Sesame Workshop, was able to develop an innovative video teacher training program called Techniques for Effective Teaching. And this is a hands-on practical, teacher training program that provides low-fee private school teachers skills and competencies to create classroom-friendly environment, child-friendly environment that makes, learning playful and more fun. And basically, this innovation or program was developed from our understanding of the classroom, culture and environment within the low-fee private schools, as well as in public schools as well, where, especially learning, it's not done in a playful way, and classroom environments are not that friendly. And so when in our bid to help, these untrained teachers with the few skills to be able to, manage their classroom well and facilitate teaching and learning, we developed this program. But this program, even though it was developed within the low-fee private school sector, has been very helpful broadly. During COVID, we were reached by the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, GTEC, they expressed a strong interest in assessing the Techniques for Effective Teaching program. We were able to fund this partnership to extend the Techniques for Effective Teaching to the 46 colleges of education in Ghana through this partnership. And this was quite helpful because during COVID, professional teacher development needed to still go on. You didn't want a situation where there was a dry spell of lack of development for the teachers. And so we were able to conduct a virtual training for a core master training group of tutors within the colleges of education. And they were also able to extend it to other tutors within the 46 colleges and are able to reach the pre-service teachers that are being trained. Through the 46 colleges of education, we were able to train about 52 master trainers who were able to extend it to close to 2,000 college tutors and benefit about 45,000 pre-service teachers within the colleges. And this is the example of how low-fee private schools serve as hubs of innovation and provide value that moves across even their own remit and affect the general education sector. Again, like I mentioned, if we want to improve on learning outcomes and we want to improve on teachers, we need to look beyond the systems and look and put the learner at the center and ask ourselves, where are children learning? How can we improve education and the systems of education everywhere? So IDP Foundation, even though our focus is on the state education sector, we pay a lot of attention to education in general, and wherever a lot of the innovation that we are creating, value we are creating, are helpful within the broader education system and fund those approaches.
I can see the passion as you communicate and go on with other innovations, training and support that you have provided. And I think that it's impressive, and the wide scope of numbers, the number of schools, the number of loans, and even the training, the virtual training, really innovative and scalable. It sounds really impressive. And I would add the website to the link so that listeners can read more about this if they are interested. And in the interest of time, I would be interested in NAS then ending with some of the major challenges. You can mention between 1 to 3 challenges that the organization is facing in rolling out its work, and then we'll end by what has been your major learning that if government is really open to hearing from you in improving the provision of low-fee private education in Ghana, or even supporting the public sector, what has been the biggest learning from your project that you are able to share? Would end with these two.
Yeah, thank you. I think maybe I will describe some of the challenges generally and broadly within the sector in 3 main buckets. One is much more around general support. The other bit is around the systems, and the last bit is around mindsets. So when we look at the system itself, one of the key things we face is there is a general lack of recognition and integration of the affordable non-state sector in global and national education systems. And this is something quite evident. In Ghana, you find out that the non-state education or private school education generally is not really engaged in a very active way. It's really engaged in a very passive way, and that kind of lack of recognition and integration is something that presents for us an issue because they are playing a complementary role. There is that lack of recognition, and so the total value that we can really elucidate from this sector is not being realized. And so that is one of the key things. Senyo, you note that one of the recent global education monitoring reports, the GEM, that focused on the non-state sector, did mention that about 350 million children are being reached by the non-state education sector, which is globally. But in Ghana as well, we also know that close to 30% of education provision is by non-state. So this is a sector that our systems need to recognize and engage more in a very active way.
Yeah.
The next thing is general support, and there's limited financing and general support to the affordable non-state sector. So, there isn't much of, education sort of financing support beyond the few programs that are being churned out there, and also general support, TLMs, teacher development and all that is really not present. And this is an area that we could improve on. The last bit is about mindset, right? And a bit of this is what you mentioned earlier on, the perception that of privatization and pro-profit or for-profit misconception with the affordable non-state sector. If you look at some of the evidences out there, low-fee private schools are barely breaking even. And so I think the motivation for setting up these schools should be seen as the complementary role and the need-meeting role, and not so much about those misconceptions around profit and privatization. I think that there is an opportunity for us to really leverage their support and leverage the value that they are creating in their complementary role in meeting our national education standards and building a very resilient system. So these are, I would say, are the broad challenges that we are facing, and it informs why we're building on a strong partnership with government. IDP has been very we've been very particular about our partnership with government and the Ministry of Education and all these agencies. Over the years, we funded technical assistance to the ministry. You did mention of NaSIA. In fact, we funded the school licensing policy, which is currently being used by NaSIA. And we've committed funding into a lot of technical assistant areas with the Ministry of Education and its agencies. And because we know that the sector needs more support, and if government will be ready to be able to do or hand over or extend those support, it needs to be prepared. And if a school licensing policy is the way to do, then we as a foundation is prepared to do that and ensure that the duty bearer, for example, in the state, in the case of NaSIA, is prepared and knows the sector and can regulate it better. And then through that, we can lead the system. I think that in terms of way forward and recommendation, we need to invest more in data and evidence around the affordable non-state sector. There is a lot that we could do. For example, I would really, for the foundation point of view, it would be great if the ministry and the Ghana Statistical Service could invest in data collection on the affordable non-state sector in general, in the private sector, private education space in general. All private schools are not the same. And so we need very detailed data to bring out all, the helpful evidences that could, really streamline our policy work, our regulation and support. If we want to really regulate and have a responsive and a targeted policy environment, we need to invest in data. The other thing I would say is that programmatic support within the sector should be learner-led or learner, it should follow learners. And so we should then ask ourselves, for example, if we want to improve teacher development, we should ask ourselves, where are all the learners? If there are learners in public schools and in private schools, we should ensure that this is happening in all these schools. If there are any programs that are coming up, we need to think through and ask ourselves, where are all the learners who could benefit from this? And then if we approach it in this way, the non-state education sector would be included in all our work. To research and academia, I would say that our research work should also extend beyond the public education system. There's a lot of, insights and evidence that could be helpful in supporting our national education discourse and policy work if researchers would pay a lot of attention to the affordable non-state sector. One of the key things we are very happy about is through our engagement with the USAID is their recent low-cost private school activity that's going to happen in northern Ghana. We've been a supporter of this, and we are very happy that our engagement with USAID has eventually led to this big investment that is coming up north. Education, outcomes up north could be improved, and I know that this investment there would extend and amplify the already existing work that is going on. And we are very supportive of that work, and we will ensure that our experiences are available to them in extending, working with low-cost private schools up north. And I think that the affordable non-state sector is playing a very complementary role in helping us meet our national education outcomes. I think we are at the stage where we need an all-hands-on-deck approach. We need to move beyond the public and private education debate and ask ourselves, we have all the resources, and we need to expand partnerships. We need to rally support from everywhere. And if the non-state education sector is already doing this work, I think they deserve the support. And if we would ever have a chance of meeting the SDG goals as a country, it is by us rallying all the support, including non-state, to be able to achieve this goal. And as IDP and as a foundation, we are committed to this, and we will continue to find ways and rally all the partnerships necessary to achieve this particular goal. So, Senyo, in short, this is why we get up every morning and we come to our offices and work with our partners. We are very much inspired, and for us, it is great that we have the opportunity to share this within this education discussion that we're hosting.
Thanks a lot for sharing that. I mean, that was a really strong end, and I do agree that we need an all hands on deck approach, and your work is meaningful in reaching communities that are marginalized and did not have enough public support, without compromising on the need for government to extend its support and increase budgetary allocation to public education, but also to partner more with the non-state sector to make sure all hands on deck and no child is being left behind. I would say thank you very, very much, Stephen, for making time for this conversation. It's been insightful. It's been a learning experience for me, and I did enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, I also enjoyed this time together, and also really appreciated the various angles that you brought into the conversation, and we will stay engaged. I think we need to once we are talking and sharing, we create a space to cross-fertilize in terms of ideas, and IDP is a learning organization, and we keep on learning wherever we go. So, Senyo, it's really been a pleasure having the opportunity to share our story with you and with your community, and we will stay engaged.
Thank you very much. And listeners, if you're interested in reading more, you just go to idpfoundation.org. That is their website. You'll be able to read more about their programs and impact. You'll find them on some social media as well. So thanks a lot, and we'll call it a day till the next episode. This is the Let's Talk Education podcast, and I'm your host, Stephen Senyo Tettegah. Until next time, bye.